The security camera footage showed everything. Karen's 3 kids systematically destroying my garden while their mother stood watching, arms crossed, smiling. But what she didn't know was that I'd just discovered something in my backyard that would turn our entire neighborhood upside down. The drain pool wasn't just a safety precaution. It was hiding a secret that would make Karen's HOA complaint the least of anyone's worries. Marcus Chen pressed his face against the kitchen window, watching in disbelief as 3 children systematically trampled through his prized tomato garden. The youngest, maybe 6 years old, was pulling entire plants from the ground while the older 2, twins who couldn't be more than 10, kicked soccer balls directly into his newly installed solar garden lights. "Are you kidding me?" he muttered, gripping the windowsill until his knuckles went white. This wasn't the first time Karen Whitmore's kids had treated his yard like their personal playground, but it was definitely going to be the last. Marcus had spent 3 years transforming the barren lot behind his house into something beautiful. Raised vegetable beds, a butterfly garden, and yes, the pool he'd just had drained for safety reasons after his elderly neighbor Mrs. Rodriguez had expressed concerns about her wandering cat. Marcus yanked open his back door and stepped onto the deck. "Hey, what are you kids doing?" The 3 children froze like deer in headlights. The youngest still clutched a handful of destroyed tomato vines, dirt streaming between her fingers. "We are just playing," the boy called back, defiant chin raised, in a gesture Marcus recognized all too well. "In my yard. These are my plants you're destroying." "It's not your yard," the girl twin shot back. "Mommy says the HOA rules mean we can play anywhere that's not fenced." Marcus felt his blood pressure spike. "Your mother is wrong. This is private property, and you need to get out. Now." "Make us," the boy said, and deliberately kicked another soccer ball directly into Marcus's bird bath, sending ceramic shards flying. That's when Karen herself appeared around the corner of Marcus's house, strutting across his lawn in her signature white capri pants and oversized sunglasses, carrying what appeared to be a clipboard. "Is there a problem here, Marcus?" she asked, her voice dripping with fake concern. "Yes, there's a problem. Your kids are destroying my garden." Karen glanced at the trampled vegetables and shrugged. "Kids will be kids. Besides, I'm actually here. On HOA business." She held up the clipboard with a triumphant smile. "I've documented several violations on your property." Marcus stared at her. "Violations?" "The pool, for one. You drained it without proper notification to the Architectural Review Committee. That's a clear violation of Section 12.3 of the Community Guidelines." "I drained it for safety reasons. And those solar lights," Karen continued, consulting her clipboard. "They're not the approved warm white specified in the lighting ordinance. They're clearly daylight white, which creates glare issues for neighboring properties." Marcus looked at his garden lights, the same ones her kids had just finished destroying, and felt something snap inside his chest. "Karen, your children just spent 20 minutes destroying my property while you watched. And you're here to complain about my light fixtures." "I didn't watch anything," she said coolly. "I was conducting an inspection. And if you can't control your emotions, maybe you should consider whether this neighborhood is really the right fit for you." The youngest child giggled and threw a handful of dirt at Marcus's deck furniture. "That's it." Marcus pulled out his phone. "I'm calling the police." Karen's laugh was sharp and cold. "Go ahead. But I should mention that Brad, you know, my husband Brad who works for the city planning department, he's already reviewed the property surveys. Turns out your pool might not even be legally positioned according to the original lot lines." Marcus felt the world tilt slightly. "What are you talking about?" "Oh, you didn't know." Karen's smile widened. "The previous owner apparently did some creative interpretation of the property boundaries when they installed that pool, which means if it's not positioned correctly, it could be considered an encroachment. And encroachments, well, they have to be removed." The twins high-fived each other and started jumping on what remained of Marcus's herb garden. "You're lying." "Am I?" Karen waved the clipboard. "I have all the documentation right here. HOA emergency meeting tomorrow night, 7 p.m. sharp. I suggest you bring a lawyer." She turned to leave, then paused. "Oh, and Marcus? You might want to think twice about filing any complaints about my children. Because once Brad submits his report to the city, you're going to have Much bigger problems than some trampled tomatoes. Marcus watched her gather her kids and stride away, their laughter echoing off his house. He stood alone in his destroyed garden, surrounded by uprooted plants and broken pottery, trying to process what had just happened. His phone buzzed. A text from his contractor, Jake Morrison. "Dude, you need to call me ASAP. Found something weird. When I was checking the pool drainage system. Can't talk about it over text. Come by the shop tonight." Marcus stared at the message, then at his drained pool, then at the retreating figures of Karen and her kids. Something cold settled in his stomach that had nothing to do with HOA violations or property lines, whatever Jake had found. Marcus had a feeling it was about to make Karen Whitmore's threats seem like a gentle summer breeze compared to the storm that was coming. He grabbed his keys and headed for his truck, leaving the wreckage of his garden behind. The security cameras he'd installed last month had captured everything. But as Marcus would soon discover, Karen's kids destroying his yard was going to be the least shocking thing those cameras had recorded. Jake Morrison's workshop sat at the edge of town, a converted warehouse that smelled of concrete dust and diesel fuel. Marcus found him hunched over a workbench under harsh fluorescent lights, staring at what looked like a metal box covered in decades of grime. "Jake, what the hell is this about? I've had the worst day and—" "Sit down," Jake interrupted, not looking up. His usual easygoing demeanor was gone, replaced by something Marcus had never seen before: fear. Marcus pulled up a folding chair. "What did you find?" Jake finally met his eyes. "When I was installing the new drainage system for your pool, I had to dig deeper than usual. The previous owner, what was his name, Fletcher, he did some weird modifications to the original pool structure." Karen mentioned something about property line issues. "Forget property lines." Jake gestured to the metal box. "I found this buried 3 feet down, sealed in a waterproof container. It was hidden inside a false bottom in the pool's equipment chamber." Marcus leaned closer. The box was old, maybe 30 years, with rust stains and what looked like deliberate scratches across its surface. "Did you open it?" Jake nodded grimly. "I had to. Thought it might be an old electrical junction or something that could cause problems. But Marcus..." He reached for a manila folder beside the box. "This is going to sound crazy, but I think your neighbor might have known about this." "What do you mean?" Jake opened the folder and spread out a collection of photographs, documents, and handwritten notes. Marcus's stomach dropped as he recognized the handwriting immediately. Neat. Precise. Unmistakably feminine. "Karen's handwriting," he whispered. "That's what I thought too. Look at this." Jake pointed to a property survey dated 15 years ago, covered in red ink annotations. "This shows the exact location where I found the box. Someone knew exactly where to look." Marcus picked up one of the photographs. It showed his backyard from an aerial view, but taken years before he'd bought the house. Red X marks dotted the image, with arrows pointing to specific locations. "There's more," Jake said quietly. He handed Marcus a spiral notebook filled with dates and detailed observations. "Look at the entries from last month." Marcus flipped through pages of meticulous notes. June 15th, new owner began garden installation. No indication he knows about FS Cash. June 22nd, confirmed original pool contractors never filed permits for equipment chamber modifications. July 1st, B says city records show discrepancies in original lot survey. Can use this. July 8th, kids reported seeing new owner with metal detector near pool area. May need to accelerate timeline. Timeline for what? Marcus muttered, then froze as he reached the final entry. July 20th, pool drained. Perfect opportunity. Must retrieve contents before city inspection reveals chamber. Modifications. Use HOA complaint as distraction. Today was July 23rd. Jake, what else was in that box? Jake's hands trembled slightly as he opened the metal container. Inside, wrapped in multiple layers of plastic and oilcloth, were stacks of cash, dozens of jewelry pieces, and what appeared to be legal documents. "I think," Jake said slowly, "your previous owner was into some very illegal stuff. And I think Karen Whitmore has been watching your house, waiting for the right moment to get this back." Marcus picked up one of the documents, a deed transfer, dated 30 years ago. The signature at the bottom made his blood run cold. Robert Fletcher. But underneath it, in the same precise handwriting from a notebook, was another signature, Karen Fletcher. Fletcher, Marcus whispered. Karen Fletcher. Not Whitmore. Gets better, Jake said grimly. He handed Marcus a newspaper clipping. From 1994. The headline read, "Local contractor missing after FBI raid. Robert Fletcher sought in embezzlement scheme." Marcus scanned the article quickly. Fletcher Construction had been accused of stealing over $2 million from municipal building projects. Robert Fletcher had disappeared the night before the FBI was scheduled to arrest him. His wife Karen had claimed ignorance and cooperation with authorities, but no charges were ever filed against her. She's been living under a false name, Marcus realized. Whitmore must be her married name from after. She's been in that house across the street, watching, waiting for someone to drain the pool, Jake finished. The only way to access that hidden chamber without major excavation. Marcus felt pieces clicking into place. That's why she was so interested in HOA violations. She needed a reason to be on my property legally, documenting everything. And the property line complaints would force a city inspection that might reveal the modifications Fletcher made, Jake nodded. She's been playing the long game. Marcus stood up, pacing the small workshop. But why now? She's had 15 years to get this stuff. Jake held up another document from the box, a letter with a recent postmark. Look at this. It came from the state penitentiary last month. Marcus read the letter quickly. It was from Robert Fletcher, apparently still alive and recently granted parole. He was coming home, and he wanted his cash back. She's running out of time, Marcus said. Her husband, her first husband, is getting out of prison, and she's stolen his identity, his escape money, probably his fence contacts for the jewelry. And now she's trapped, Jake agreed. If Fletcher comes back and finds out she's been living as Karen Whitmore, with a new husband and kids, using his stolen money to build a suburban life. Marcus's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. We need to talk. Alone. Your back deck, midnight. Come alone or I call my husband at the city planning office right now. You have something that belongs to my family, and I want it back. Jake read the message over Marcus's shoulder. She knows. How could she know? Think about it. She's probably been monitoring your house for months. Security cameras work both ways, Marcus. If she's been watching you, she saw me working. On the pull system. She probably figured out I found something. Marcus felt trapped. If I don't meet with her, she ruins me with the HOA and the city. If I do meet with her. You're dealing with someone who's been living a lie for 15 years and has millions of dollars in stolen goods to protect. Jake started putting the contents back in the metal box. Marcus, this woman isn't just entitled neighborhood Karen. She's a criminal who's been playing the long con, and now her past is catching up with her. What do I do? Jake handed him the box. You document everything. Every conversation, every threat, every move she makes. Because when Robert Fletcher gets out of prison and comes looking for his money, Karen Whitmore's perfect suburban life is going to explode. Marcus tucked the box under his arm, his mind racing. The HOA meeting tomorrow night. She's going to try to force me out so she can buy the house herself. Probably. Get the money, disappear before Fletcher arrives. As Marcus headed for the door, Jake called after him. Marcus, be careful tonight. You're not dealing with someone who's just going to ask nicely and walk away. She's got too much to lose. Marcus drove home through the quiet suburban streets, the metal box burning like a live coal in his passenger seat. Every streetlight seemed too bright, every shadow too dark. When he pulled into his driveway, he noticed Karen's house across the street. Every light was off except one, a single upstairs window where a figure stood motionless, watching. His phone buzzed again. Another message. I can see you came home. I can see you found what my first husband hid. Midnight. Marcus. Don't make me do something we'll both regret. Marcus looked up at that lit window. The figure was gone. But as he walked toward his front door, he noticed something that made his blood freeze. Fresh footprints in the soft dirt of his destroyed garden. Small ones. Karen's kids had been back while he was gone. And they'd left something behind. Spray painted across his garage door in dripping red letters were the words, "We know where you sleep." End of Part 2. Marcus now held the key to Karen's deadly secret, but she held all the power in their suburban battlefield. With Robert Fletcher's return imminent and Karen's desperation escalating to threats against his safety, the midnight confrontation would determine whether Marcus survived long enough to expose the truth, or became another casualty of Karen's decades-long deception. Marcus waited on his back deck at 11:45 p.m., the metal box hidden inside his house but Robert Fletcher's documents tucked in his jacket pocket. He'd positioned his phone to record audio and had Jake on speed dial. The summer air was thick with humidity and tension. At exactly midnight, Karen emerged from the shadows like a ghost. Gone were the white capri pants and oversized sunglasses. She wore all black, her blonde hair pulled back severely, and carried what looked like a manila envelope. "You found it," she said without preamble, settling into the chair across from him with predatory grace. "Found what?" Karen's laugh was sharp and humorless. "Don't insult my intelligence, Marcus. I know Jake Morrison pulled Robert's cash from the pool chamber. I also know you've been through the contents." Marcus kept his expression neutral. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Really?" Karen opened the envelope and spread photographs across the table. They showed Marcus and Jake in the workshop, clear shots of them examining the metal box and its contents. These were taken through the window 2 hours ago. Marcus felt ice in his veins. "You've been following me." "I've been protecting my family," Karen corrected. "Do you know what it's like to build a life on quicksand? To spend 15 years looking over your shoulder, waiting for the past to catch up? So you decided to steal your first husband's escape money." Karen's eyes flashed dangerously. "Robert Fletcher stole that money from the city. From hardworking people. When he disappeared and left me to face the FBI alone, I decided he'd forfeited any claim to it. But you didn't turn it in." "Turn it in?" Karen leaned forward. "I was 25 years old with no job skills and a criminal husband who'd abandoned me. That money was my survival fund." Marcus pulled out one of the documents, the deed with both signatures. "Except you helped him hide it. Your signature is on the property transfer, Karen. You knew exactly where he buried the cash." For the first time, Karen's composure cracked slightly. "Prove it." "I don't have to prove anything. Robert Fletcher gets out of prison in 3 days. You think he's going to be understanding when he finds out Karen Fletcher became Karen Whitmore, married a city planning official, and has been living off his stolen money?" Karen stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the deck. "You don't understand what you're dealing with. Enlighten me." "Robert Fletcher isn't some reformed criminal coming home to start over. He's a violent man who blamed me for his arrest. He thinks I tipped off the FBI." Marcus felt a chill. "Did you?" Karen's silence was answer enough. "Jesus," Marcus breathed. "You did. You turned him in to save yourself, then stole his escape money while he rotted in prison." "I did what I had to do to survive." Karen's voice rose, then she quickly lowered it, glancing toward the neighboring houses. "And now he's coming back, and if he finds out about Brad, about my kids, he'll kill you. He'll kill all of us." Karen pulled another photograph from the envelope. This one showed Marcus's house from above, with red circles marking every window, every entrance. "Including you, if you don't give me what I need to. Disappear." Marcus stared at the surveillance photos. "How long have you been planning this?" "Since the day I found out Robert was being considered for parole. I've been monitoring every house sale in this neighborhood for 2 years, waiting for someone to buy Fletcher's old place. You've been stalking me since I moved in." "I've been protecting my family since I was 25 years old," Karen corrected. "But now I need that cash, and I need Robert to think it was never found." Marcus felt the pieces clicking together. The HOA complaints. The property line disputes. "You're not trying to force me out. You're trying to get the city to excavate the pool area." Karen smiled for the first time that night, cold and calculating. "Very good. If the city discovers evidence of unpermitted modifications during their inspection, they'll be forced to investigate. When they find the empty cash chamber, it'll look like Robert's money was confiscated years ago." "But you already have the money." "Exactly. Robert will assume the authorities found his cash during the original investigation. He'll have no reason to come after me." Marcus shook his head. "Except for the fact that you testified against him." That's where you come in. Karen pulled out a final document, a typed confession with Marcus's name at the top. You're going to sign a statement admitting you found evidence of the previous owner's criminal activity and turned it over to the authorities. Marcus read the confession with growing horror. It detailed how he discovered the hidden chamber while renovating his pool, found evidence of embezzlement, and contacted the FBI. The timestamp was dated 3 months ago, before Robert Fletcher's parole. Hearing. This makes it look like the authorities knew about the cash all along, Marcus realized, and that Robert Fletcher's money was long gone before his release. No reason for him to come looking. Karen set a pen on the table. Sign it. And if I don't. Karen's smile widened. Brad files his report with the city tomorrow morning. Your pool is condemned as an illegal structure. The city forces excavation at your expense, which you can't afford, so you're forced to sell. Guess who makes an offer? You buy the house, plant the confession in the records, and disappear with your family before Robert gets out. I prefer to think of it as strategic relocation. Marcus stared at the confession, his mind racing. If he signed it, Karen would escape justice, but her first husband would be free to terrorize someone else. If he didn't sign it, she'd destroy his life and disappear anyway. There's a third option, he said slowly. Karen's eyes narrowed. What? I call the FBI right now. Tell them Karen Fletcher is alive and living under an assumed identity. Let them sort out what happens when Robert gets out and finds his money. Missing. You'd condemn 3 innocent children to witness their mother's murder. The manipulation was expertly done, but Marcus had spent enough time with Karen to recognize her tactics. Those kids aren't innocent. They've been helping you. Conduct surveillance on my property for months. Karen's facade cracked completely. What did you say? The garden trampling, the property damage. It was all designed to give you reasons to be on my land legally. Teaching your children to be criminals, just like you learned from Robert. Don't you dare. The spray paint on my garage. We know where you sleep. What kind of mother uses her children to threaten someone? Karen's hand moved to her jacket pocket, and Marcus saw the outline of something metallic. You don't know what you're talking about. I know exactly what I'm talking about, and I know something else you don't. What? Marcus pulled out his phone, showing the active recording app that had been running since 11:30. I've recorded this entire conversation. Every confession, every threat, every detail about your identity theft and fraud. Karen's face went white. You son of a bitch. The recording is automatically uploaded to cloud storage. If something happens to me, it gets sent to the FBI, the local police, and every news outlet in the state. You're bluffing. Marcus hit a button on his phone. Karen's own voice played back clearly. I did what I had to do to survive. And now he's coming back, and if he finds out about Brad, about my kids, he'll kill all of us. Karen reached into her pocket, but Marcus was already moving. Jake, he shouted toward the tree line. Now. Floodlights erupted from 3 different directions, illuminating the deck like a movie set. Jake emerged from behind the garden shed with a video camera, while 2 other figures Marcus didn't recognize stepped out from either side of the house. Karen Fletcher, said one of the new arrivals, displaying an FBI badge. You're under arrest for fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy to commit embezzlement. Karen's hand froze on whatever she'd been reaching for. This is impossible. How did you? Mr. Chen contacted us 6 hours ago, the agent continued. We've been investigating Robert Fletcher's missing assets since his incarceration began. Amazing how much evidence you left behind when you assumed no one would ever look for Karen Fletcher. As they cuffed her, Karen turned to Marcus with pure hatred in her eyes. Robert will find you. When he gets out and realizes what you've done, he'll track you down. You have no idea what kind of man he is. Actually, the second FBI agent said, stepping into the light, Robert Fletcher died in prison 3 months ago. Heart attack. We've been wondering when you'd surface to claim his cash. Karen's face went through a series of expressions: shock, disbelief, then crushing realization. That's right, the agent continued. The parole letters, the threat of his return, all fabricated by us to flush you out. We knew Karen Fletcher had to be alive somewhere, and we knew she'd eventually come for the money. As they led her away, Karen's perfect suburban mask finally shattered completely. The polished HOA queen was gone, replaced by the desperate criminal she'd always been underneath. Marcus watched the FBI cars disappear into the night, taking with them 15 years of lies and the woman who terrorized his neighborhood with clipboard complaints and property line disputes. But as the floodlights dimmed and quiet returned to his backyard, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that Karen's arrest was just the beginning of something much larger and more dangerous than anyone realized. His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Saw the commotion at your house. Interesting how things work out. We should meet soon. I have. 3 days after Karen's arrest, Marcus met his mysterious contact at Morningside Diner, a 24-hour establishment on the edge of town where conversations disappeared into the clatter of dishes and late-night desperation. The woman who slid into the booth across from him looked like every suburban mother he'd ever seen. Mid-40s, sensible haircut, yoga clothes that screamed, "I volunteer at the PDA." "Thank you for coming," she said, extending a manicured hand. "I'm Diana Walsh. I live on Oakwood Drive, 2 streets over from you." Marcus shook her hand cautiously. "You said you had information about other people in the neighborhood." Diana glanced around the nearly empty diner, then pulled out a tablet. "What do you know about the Riverside Gardens development?" "Just that it's where I live. Pretty standard suburban neighborhood." "Nothing about Riverside Gardens is standard." Diana swiped through a series of photographs on her tablet. "It was built in 1987 by Fletcher Construction. Yes, the same Robert Fletcher whose wife you just helped arrest." Marcus felt a familiar chill. What does that have to mean? It means Fletcher designed the entire development as a haven for people who needed to disappear. "Look at this." She showed him aerial photographs of the neighborhood from different decades. "Notice anything odd about the house layouts?" Marcus studied the images. They're all positioned to maximize privacy. No direct lines of sight between properties, strategic landscaping blocking view angles. Every house has multiple exit routes, oversized basements, and modified utility access. Fletcher wasn't just building a neighborhood, he was building a witness protection program for criminals. Diana swiped to a new screen showing property records. Riverside Gardens has the highest rate of cash purchases in the state. No mortgage applications, no financial background checks. Just lump sum payments and new identities. "You're saying the entire neighborhood is full of criminals in hiding?" "Not all of them, but enough to make it very dangerous for someone who asks too many questions." Diana leaned forward. "Marcus, when you moved in, you disrupted a very delicate ecosystem. Karen Fletcher wasn't the only person watching your house." She showed him security camera footage from various angles around his property. Marcus recognized his own backyard, but the timestamp showed activity he'd never noticed. Figures moving through his yard at night, cars pausing too long at his street corner, people photographing his house from multiple angles. "Who are these people?" "Your neighbors." Diana zoomed in on faces. "That's Thomas Brennan from Maple Street. Officially, he's a retired accountant. Unofficially, he embezzled $14 million from a Fortune 500 company and faked his death in a boating accident." Marcus's stomach dropped. "The guy who brings me tomatoes from his garden." "That's Helen Rodriguez next door to you. Sweet elderly lady who worries about her cat, right? She's actually Maria Santos, a former cartel money launderer who testified against her employers and entered unofficial witness protection when the official program couldn't guarantee her safety." The world tilted sideways. "Mrs. Rodriguez? She makes me cookies." "And Brad Whitmore, Karen's husband from the city planning office? His real name is Bradley Walsh. He's my ex-husband, and he's supposed to be dead." Marcus stared at her. "What?" Diana's composed facade cracked slightly. "Brad embezzled money from municipal projects in 3 different states. When he got caught, he faked his suicide and disappeared. I thought he was dead for 8 years. Then I saw him at a city council meeting on the local news, living under a new name, married to a woman I now know was also a fugitive." Jesus Christ. How many people in this neighborhood are living fake lives? "At least 12 that I've identified. Maybe more." Diana showed him a neighborhood map with red dots marking various houses. Fletcher Construction built Riverside Gardens as the perfect place to disappear. Remote enough for privacy, but close enough to the city for people to rebuild their lives. All they needed was someone on the inside to help with documentation. Someone like Karen, who had access to her husband's city planning connections. Exactly. She wasn't just hiding her own identity, she was running a service. New names, new backgrounds, new lives for anyone willing to pay. Marcus felt the pieces clicking together. The HOA. She wasn't just a controlling neighbor, she was maintaining operational security for the entire neighborhood. Every violation complaint, every architectural review, every community meeting, it was all about keeping track of who lived where and making sure no one asked too many questions. Diana pulled up email records. Look at the HOA communications from the past 5 years. Marcus read through strings of messages that looked like normal neighborhood business on the surface, but with Diana's explanation, he could see the coded language underneath. Discussions about maintaining community standards were actually about keeping residents' covers intact. Complaints about unauthorized modifications were warnings about activities that might attract unwanted attention. My God, Marcus whispered. The whole thing was a criminal enterprise disguised as a homeowners association. And you threatened it by being exactly what you appeared to be, a normal person who bought a house and started asking normal questions about normal problems. Marcus's phone buzzed. A text from Jake Morrison. Need you to come to the shop ASAP. Found something else when I was cleaning up the pool equipment. You're not going to believe this. Diana saw his expression change. What is it? My contractor found something else. Marcus stood up. Want to see what other surprises Robert Fletcher left behind? 20 minutes later, they stood in Jake's workshop staring at a second metal box, this one much larger than the first. It was hidden in the pool's filtration system, Jake explained. Sealed inside a false chamber I didn't notice the first time. Only found it when I was removing the old equipment. Diana opened the box with steady hands that suggested she'd done this before. Inside were dozens of manila folders, each labeled with a name and containing detailed dossiers. Identity packages, she breathed. Complete life histories for people who needed to disappear. Marcus picked up a folder labeled Bradley Walsh Brad Whitmore. Inside were birth certificates, social security cards, employment records, even high school yearbooks, everything needed to become a different person. This is how they did it, Diana said, flipping through folder after folder. Fletcher wasn't just helping individuals hide, he was running a full-service witness relocation operation for criminals who couldn't use official channels. Or who didn't want law enforcement knowing where they were, Marcus added, examining a folder that contained bank account information and safe deposit box keys. Diana pulled out her phone and started photographing everything. There are addresses here for safe houses in 12 different states. Contact information for document forgers, corrupt officials who could be bought, even assassination services. Assassination services. Marcus felt the blood drain from his face. For people who became liabilities. Diana held up a folder labeled Problem Resolution Services. Inside were photographs of people Marcus didn't recognize, each with a red stamp across their face. Marcus, Robert Fletcher, wasn't just helping criminals hide, he was running a murder-for-hire operation to eliminate anyone who threatened the network. Jake backed away from the box. We need to call the FBI again. No, Diana said sharply. Look at these dates. Some of these hits happened after Fletcher went to prison. Someone else has been running his operation. Marcus felt ice in his veins. Karen. She wasn't smart enough for this level of organization. Diana pulled out a folder that made her gasp. Oh my God. Inside was a photograph of Marcus taken the day he'd moved into his house, along with a detailed background report and a note in familiar handwriting. Potential security risk. Monitor closely. Eliminate if necessary. But the handwriting wasn't Karen's. It was neat, masculine, and Marcus had seen it before. On the city planning documents Brad Whitmore had used to threaten him with pool violations. Brad, Diana whispered. My ex-husband has been running Fletcher's operation since Karen's arrest. And Marcus. She showed him the last page in his folder, which contained photographs of his house from every angle, his daily routine mapped out in detail, and a timeline of his activities since moving in. He's been planning to kill me. Not just planning. Diana pointed to a calendar in the back of the folder. Today's date was circled in red, with a note, Final resolution scheduled. Make it look accidental. Marcus's phone rang. The caller. ID showed Brad Whitmore. Don't answer it, Diana warned. But Marcus was already swiping to accept the call. Hello, Brad. Marcus, thank God. We have an emergency at your house. Gas leak. You need to stay away until the utility company can get there. I'm coordinating with emergency services. Through the workshop window, Marcus could see smoke rising in the distance, coming from the direction of his neighborhood. My house is on fire, isn't it? Brad's pause was all the answer he needed. These things happen in older homes. Faulty wiring, gas leaks. Very tragic when homeowners are trapped inside. Except I'm not inside. Another pause, longer this time. No, you're not. Which is unfortunate. Diana grabbed Marcus's arm, her face pale with terror. He's going to come for you here. But Marcus was staring at something else in the folder, a list of other names marked F. The tactical team's flashlight swept across Jake's workshop windows as Marcus, Diana, and Jake crouched behind overturned workbenches. Outside, they could hear coordinated movement, professional, methodical, deadly. Sarah's out there, Marcus whispered into his phone, hoping his sister could still hear him despite the jamming. If you can hear this, we are in the back corner. 3 civilians, massive evidence cache. Diana clutched the folders containing Fletcher's assassination records. There are at least 8 of them. Military precision. Jake hefted his crowbar. 27 years in construction. I'm not dying in my own shop. The front door exploded inward. Marcus Chen, Brad Whitmore's voice echoed through the workshop. Let's discuss this like civilized neighbors. Marcus could see Brad's silhouette in the doorway, flanked by tactical gear-clad figures. Gone was any pretense of suburban civility. This was the man who'd faked his death, stolen millions, and run a murder network for over a decade. Nothing to discuss. Brad. Or should I say Bradley Walsh? Brad's laugh was cold. Diana told you about that, did she? My dear departed wife. I should have made sure you stayed dead properly the first time. You tried to kill me in that car accident, Diana called out. Made it look like I was driving. Drunk. You were asking too many questions about my municipal contracts. Just like Marcus here. Brad stepped further into the workshop. Fletcher built something beautiful, a place where people could reinvent themselves, escape their past mistakes. You are threatening decades of peace. Peace. Marcus stood up from behind the workbench. You murdered anyone who got suspicious. That's not peace, that's terror. That's business. Brad raised his hand, and the tactical team spread out through the workshop. Fletcher understood that some problems require permanent solutions. Through the back window, Marcus caught a glimpse of movement in the darkness. His sister's team was moving into position. How many people have you killed, Brad? Marcus asked, stalling for time. Fewer than you might think. Most people are reasonable when properly motivated. Brad's tone was conversational, terrifyingly casual. Take Mrs. Rodriguez, Maria Santos. She pays a monthly fee for protection and document maintenance. Very civilized arrangement. You're extorting a 70-year-old woman. I'm providing a service. Maria laundered money for the Sinaloa cartel. Without my protection, she'd be dead within a week. Diana stood up beside Marcus. What about the others? Thomas Brennan? The Hendersons on Pine Street. All satisfied customers. Fletcher's network has protected over 200 individuals across 15 states. We've prevented dozens of murders by providing safe relocation services. And committed dozens more to protect your operation, Jake added. Brad's expression. Hardened. Acceptable losses. Every business has overhead. The workshop's power suddenly cut out, plunging them into darkness. Emergency lighting flickered on, casting eerie shadows across the space. Federal agents. Sarah Chen's voice boomed from outside. Building is surrounded. Drop your weapons and exit with hands visible. Your sister. Brad asked Marcus. How touching. Family reunions can be so explosive. He gestured to one of his men, who produced what looked like a military-grade incendiary device. You're going to burn us alive. Diana's voice was steady despite the circumstances. Gas leak explosion. Very common in old buildings with faulty equipment. Brad checked his watch. We have approximately 3 minutes before my insurance policy activates. Marcus could smell the gas now. They'd been pumping it into the building during their conversation. Why kill us? Marcus asked. We could disappear too. Join your network. You could, Brad agreed. But you've already involved federal law enforcement. That makes you a liability rather than an asset. Through the broken front door, Marcus could see muzzle flashes as Brad's team engaged with the FBI. The sound of automatic weapons filled the night air. Time's up, Brad said, activating the incendiary device. 30 seconds. That's when Jake Morrison did something that surprised everyone. He laughed. You know what's funny about construction work? Jake said, casually walking toward Brad. You learn where all the important systems are located. He raised the crowbar and brought it down hard on what looked like an ordinary junction box on the wall. The workshop sprinkler system activated instantly, dousing the incendiary device and washing away the accumulated gas. Simultaneously, every light in the building blazed to life as emergency power kicked in. Fire suppression system, Jake explained to Brad's shocked expression. Required by code for workshops storing flammable materials. Amazing what you can learn from actually following the law. Brad raised his weapon, but Diana was already moving. She tackled him from the side, and they crashed into a rack of tools. The assassination folders scattered across the wet floor. That's for 8 years of thinking I killed myself because of your crimes, Diana snarled, pinning Brad down. Marcus grabbed the folders, stuffing them into a waterproof tool bag as FBI agents flooded into the workshop. Marcus. Sarah Chen appeared. In tactical gear, weapon drawn. You okay? Better than okay. We've got everything. Names, locations, financial records, the entire network. Sarah zip-tied Brad while he glared at Marcus with pure hatred. This doesn't end with me. Fletcher's network is bigger than you can imagine. You'll spend the rest of your life looking over your shoulder. Maybe, Marcus said. But at least it'll be my actual life, not some fake identity built on other people's graves. As Brad was led away, he turned back one final time. Your neighborhood will never be the same. Everyone you trusted, everyone you thought you knew, they're all criminals. You'll never feel safe in your own home again. Marcus looked around at the chaos of the workshop, then at Diana and Jake, then at his sister coordinating the arrest of a dozen fugitives. You know what, Brad? You're right. It'll never be the same. Marcus smiled. It'll be better. 6 hours later, as dawn broke over Riverside Gardens, Marcus stood in front of his burn house with Diana and Jake. The fire department had contained the blaze to mostly cosmetic damage, but the symbolism wasn't lost on anyone. So what now? Diana asked. Most of your neighbors are either in federal custody or about to be. Marcus watched FBI agents systematically searching house after house, uncovering decades of carefully constructed lies. Mrs. Rodriguez, Maria Santos, was cooperating fully, providing information about cartel operations in exchange for continued protection. Thomas Brennan had barricaded himself in his basement with $14 million in cash and a suicide note. Now we rebuild, Marcus said simply. The right way this time. Jake clapped him on the shoulder. Going to need a new pool contractor. I hear the last guy found some pretty weird stuff. Marcus's phone rang. The caller ID showed an unknown number, but this time he answered without hesitation. Marcus Chen. Mr. Chen, this is Agent Rodriguez with the FBI's Organized Crime Task Force. We understand you've been very helpful in uncovering the Fletcher network. Just doing my civic duty. We'd like to discuss a consulting arrangement. Your experience with this case could be invaluable in identifying other criminal safe havens across the country. Marcus looked at his burn house, his destroyed garden, his drained pool that had started this entire nightmare. Then he looked at Diana, who'd spent 8 years believing her husband was dead, and Jake, who'd risked his life to help a friend he'd known for less than a year. Agent Rodriguez, Marcus said, I think I'm going to stick to suburban life for a while. But if you ever need someone who knows how to spot a fake HOA complaint from a mile away, give me a call. As the FBI van pulled away with the last of the Arrested fugitives, Marcus noticed something that made him smile. A for sale sign was being planted in Karen Fletcher's front yard, and walking up his driveway was a genuine city inspector with a clipboard, ready to help him get proper permits. For pool restoration. And no more fake violations. No more hidden caches. No more neighbors with secret identities, just a man, his house, and the revolutionary concept of actually following the rules. Marcus Chen was finally going to have the most boring suburban life imaginable, and he couldn't. Wait. 3 months later, Marcus hosted his first neighborhood barbecue. The guest list was significantly shorter than it would have been before the FBI raids, but the conversations were refreshingly honest. Diana Walsh had moved into the house across the street, Karen Fletcher's old place, after legally reclaiming her identity and testifying against her criminal ex-husband. Jake Morrison was rebuilding Marcus's pool with proper permits and no hidden chambers. Mrs. Rodriguez, now legally Maria Santos under federal witness protection, still brought cookies and worried about her cat. The difference was that now everyone knew exactly who she was and why she needed protection. You know, Diana said, flipping burgers on Marcus's new grill, this is probably the first time in 30 years that this neighborhood has had a completely legal barbecue. Marcus raised his beer to boring suburban life, to following the rules, Jake added, to neighbors who are exactly who they say they are. Maria finished as they toasted. Marcus's phone buzzed with a text from his sister Sarah. Arrested 12 more Fletcher Network associates in Phoenix. Your consulting fee is officially doubled. Thanks, little brother. Marcus smiled and put his phone away without responding. Some secrets were worth keeping.